Welcome, everyone. This is the first in a series of panel discussions focused on finding the right fit. It's quite a maze out there. There are more than 4,000 degree granting colleges and universities in the US. And then we've got many shapes and sizes of higher ed. We've got great community colleges across the country, private colleges offering liberal arts and sciences, private research universities, and then the focus of today's panel discussion, public universities. We're joined by three of our VetLink partners, the University of Michigan, Arizona State University, and Texas A&M University. So we're going to take you through some of the key characteristics that differentiate public universities from other sectors of higher ed. We'll then talk about some of the opportunities that emerge from attending a public university. Then each of our panelists will briefly introduce you to their respective colleges, and then we're going to open the floor up for questions and answers. For any questions and answers you have during the presentation, please feel free to use the chat room and we'll respond to those that we can during chat, and we'll get to the rest during the Q&A. So let's meet our panelists. First up is Phil Larson. Phil is the program director for Veteran and Military Services at the University of Michigan. Next up is Lisa Faulkner. Lisa is the Director of Graduate and Transfer Recruitment for Arizona State University. And rounding out this great panel is Jerry Smith. He's the Director of the Office of Veteran Services for the Texas A&M University System. So Lisa, one of the things we often hear about public universities is they're driven by their mission, and the mission, determines funding, priorities, research, the use of components around this campus. So love to hear from you, about the mission that we usually see around public universities.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jim. So thank you all for joining us today. I'll start first by sharing why I think the three of us are passionate about the work we do, and we are driven to ensure that veteran and military students have access to higher education. And that's purely because of the fact that we work at public institutions and public universities. Basically because these public universities tend to be funded by state governments. This means that we should and we do create a very accessible education system. So our goal is to ensure that students who want to go to college and who aspire to earn a degree have the opportunity to do so through a public university. So there are programs designed to either help students build their academic skills to prepare for college, to prepare to be on a track to graduation throughout their academic career. And then obviously, there are undergrad degrees and graduate degrees, meaning like master's degrees and PhDs. And students have the resources and the access to go through an entire degree program through a public university. Another piece of the public institution is the fact that our faculty are considered some of the best of the best. So if you're looking at like an R1 or a Research 1 institution, university, that means basically that that university has created a curriculum or classroom experience where undergraduate students, even first-year students or freshmen or transfer students, are going to start doing hands-on research through their academic program. So you're not just sitting in a classroom staring at a professor who is telling you about the history of 1776, but you're actually engaging in research or focusing on a specific topic to deepen your knowledge. Perhaps you are focusing in on overcoming an obstacle for a population or for a community within perhaps your city or within your community. The other piece is a lot of the public institutions acknowledge the fact that these students come to their school because they want to make a difference in the world and in their world. So your faculty are giving you the opportunity to truly engage in the experience so that when you graduate, you're not just graduating with a degree, but you're graduating with an experience and a hands-on experience to actually go out and start working and to go out and make that difference that you want to make. One important piece I wanted to mention too related to this is oftentimes each state across the United States will create they're called pathway programs. So the pathway program basically means that students who have transfer credits, like military credits or community college credits or credits from another university, have a pathway created so that they can go to a university like Michigan State or like Texas A&M or like ASU, and they'll take those credits from the previous academic experience and apply them to a degree at ASU, for example. And basically students will take credits, apply them, and then continue on their path. So the goal ultimately is to obviously graduate within, a 4-year, 5-year time frame, but also to minimize and reduce spending and reduce out-of-pocket costs to education. So there are a couple of the topics I wanted to mention. And then finally, the other piece is just remembering that the public institutions also provide that care throughout your entire life. So you're not just coming in as a student to start off as a transfer student, perhaps, but you are actually going to be a part of that community. So you're going to be an Aggie or a Sun Devil for the rest of your life. That alumni connection and that connection to the Veterans Center at each of our universities is what builds that life cycle and builds that relationship and gives you that community feel like you're a part of something and you're a part of something great. So that's what I wanted to start off by sharing about the mission.
Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate that. Jerry, I grew up in Texas, spent some time in Michigan. I now live in Virginia. In all of those states, it's hard to go to the store and not seeing somebody wearing with pride, the team shirts of one of the public universities in the state. And we talked about how culture and community is incredibly important to determining fit as well, because you're going to spend 3, 4, 5 years, at that institution and then go on and always have that being part of you. Could you talk a little bit about the culture and community that we see at public universities?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks everybody for giving up some of your Wednesday evening. It's a very positive sign that you're being proactive and learning about the paths and opportunities in your future. In the military, you would go to different units and we called it command climate. Some places just worked and you fit. You felt like you were more a part of it. And when you look at the culture and community of our public universities, it's very different from the private universities and certainly the community college experience. The first piece of this is really, the only way I can describe it is an incredibly passionate, student-centered spirit on any one of our campuses. It's a very dynamic atmosphere. And after just a short time on campus, you'll know and feel that you're a part of that sort of traditional, genuine college experience, part of something bigger. It's very tradition-based. And look at our 3 campuses. University of Michigan opened in 1817, Arizona State in 1885, and we were in 1876. So we tend to be very well established. That's a nice way of saying older. But with that age and well-established sense, we're very rooted in traditions that tie together generations of students who are very loyal to each other, very loyal to their campus, very proud of each of their campuses. Our larger public universities are going to draw a very diverse student body. You'll have more opportunities to meet like-minded people, but on the flip side, you're also going to have a lot of opportunities to learn about a wider range of people. And both of those aspects are going to serve you very well as you transition through the college campus and onto your next career. Think about the militaries, or the similarities of our military services: long histories, traditions, customs, loyalty, pride in organization, diverse. The military community, there's a lot more similarities than you might think, because it is really truly one team, our family. When you join the military, you joined a new family. Think of a large public campus as the opportunity to join your next new family. Choose wisely, make sure you fit. A lot of student organizations. I heard Phil say it was, I think, 1,200 at the University of Michigan. We're over 1,000 on our campus. When we get new student veterans on our campus, I ask them at the new student conference, what do you do for fun? What's your passion? I've been doing this for 8 years, and without exception, every answer they provide me, we have a student-run organization that fits that passion. Nobody stumped me yet on that one. Some of our student vets hesitate to join these organizations. That's a missed opportunity. These younger traditional students you're going to be in class with, they're trying to figure out how to lead. You already know how to do that. This is an opportunity for you to go out and practice your passion through involvement, but more importantly, bring your leadership to campus. You have something to offer both in the classroom and extracurricular. Obviously, large Division I athletics, some outrageous sports teams. Enrolling in a large public university, it puts you right at ground zero for some of the best college football, basketball, baseball, and dozens of other sports anywhere in the country. And if you'd rather be a participant rather than a spectator, lots of opportunity for veterans to go out and participate in club sports. The name brand recognition, we're going to talk more about different aspects of this a little bit later, but I will tell you it matters on a number of levels. Sometimes it correlates with just the sheer size of our institutions or the athletic success of the sports teams. Very often it's academic quality, but what I would tell you, typically it's all three of those. And we'll come back to that in a minute.
Great, thanks, Jerry. Phil, you've heard me say before, I grew up close to Ann Arbor, and all the parents in my neighborhood, if they could have had a child go and graduate from the University of Michigan, that was the ideal, because they knew when they walked out of there that they had come out of an incredible academic experience. But academics is really defined in many ways. Could you talk a little bit about public universities and how the size really feeds into a vast array of academic advantages?
Thank you all again for being here and everybody for participating. We did have a question on, can you walk on to a football team or one of our varsity teams? Yeah, we have walk-ons, and you can try out at any one of our schools, and they have walk-on days, and we've had people do it before. We've had veterans actually become a part of the football team, walk on and try, and they were great, and they were good, and they were in shape. And so if that's your thing, absolutely try it. Not just football, a vast array of athletic programs any one of our campuses have. So for academics, I think the vast array of majors that we have. So we have like 280 different majors on campus, which is almost overwhelming, right? I mean, just things that you can do. I encourage people when they're looking at, especially at public universities, is find out what you want to do. Not necessarily the career, the money. Don't just follow the money. Don't just follow the stuff that you did in the military. I was an aircraft armament system specialist in the Air Force, which I loaded bombs and weapons. I don't touch bombs or weapons anymore. Find something else that you'd like to do and make it a passion. And some of those things for the majors, and we talked about those research opportunities and the researchers that are on our campuses as Division I research institutions. These are experts in their field. So ask the one thing I challenge students to do: don't think about your professor as your colonel. So don't approach them as somebody to be feared. Go up and ask him or her about what they do. These are people who've spent their lives in research type of situations. They are experts, world-renowned experts at what they do, the top people usually at what they do. Ask them about it. They'd love to share that with you. Find one of those that you think would be interesting. So when you get in college, it's not like the career in the military where you're kind of tracked and you're laned into that kind of one specific career field. You can actually explore and change majors if you want. You can find out what your passion is. And that is a big thing that I think a large public research institution has to offer, is just lots of those kind of choices, lots of those kind of different pathways that you can take for graduation, and a whole variety of majors that you can choose from and kind of go down. We have unlimited opportunities to engage and define, again, your undergraduate experience. So you can not only select one of the 280 majors that we have at Michigan or ASU or at Texas, You can design a lot of times design your own. If we don't offer it, you can talk to your professors and staff members and your academic advisors, and we can actually design a degree that may dip into several different majors. And sometimes that's where we find where students want to create almost a new major. So we can do a lot of those things. The opportunities are limitless almost for you to kind of choose your own adventure for your academics. We talked about world-class professors. We have lots of academic resources for you at your fingertips, not just the classes themselves, but people who are willing to tutor, people who are, we have a writing lab, we have math labs, we have computer labs, we have computer science labs, we have chemistry labs, we have biology labs for those outside of the classroom, willing to help you engage in your academics, helping you succeed at your academics, and get through some hard classes sometimes. And then again, we have really good, Lisa mentioned it before, about a connection to graduate and professional programs. Not only on campus, these are people who actually teach some of your courses. So you can ask them about, hey, you're a philosophy kind of master's degree student. How do I get into the philosophy department at Michigan? And they can help you actually get to your next level of degree. So the experts are right there as students, and the colleges and the programs are right there to help you kind of get to that next level in your degree program.
So I had shared with you earlier, I have two adult age children. They went to and through college, and when we were determining fit for them was very different than fit for my wife and I. And it was the opportunities, what was going to happen after they walked off that stage and proudly held that piece of paper. And we've talked, Jerry, you and I talked about the career services and how those are an important piece of support and functionality at a public university.
Where we go back to that name and brand recognition. This is one of the critical places where that comes to work for your benefit, the benefit of the student veteran at graduation, and even before, if you're talking about internships that get you to the career opportunities in a lot of cases. Large public institutions, universities, get automatic recognition by Fortune 100, Fortune 500, and nearly every major other company, not just in this country, but literally around the world. Being recognized as a Sun Devil, a Wolverine, an Aggie, just plain and simple, it's going to open doors. And what you do after you get in the door is, by and large, up to you. Just understand that doors will be open for you that aren't open for others. And these campus career centers are amazingly well resourced to create success for their alumni. I get queries in our office, people calling up saying, I want to hire your Aggie veteran graduates. Depending on the time of the year. Yeah, Phil's shaking his head. Sometimes it's 1 to 2 every week during the fall semester. They're banging down our doors. As a veteran with that name brand recognition, you are a very valuable commodity in the workforce.
Phil, I remember last year working with a student who had been accepted to an Ivy League school, been accepted to Stanford. They ended up going to University of Michigan because of the specific research the University of Michigan does. And could you talk a little bit about fact or fiction when it comes to research that public universities are heavily involved in solving the world's problems through research?
Absolutely. I approach students even in this way of ask us questions, because we are actually built on question asking. We are research institutions. That's our bread and butter, is actually asking questions, asking the world questions of what does it mean to X, Y, and Z? What happens if X, Y, and Z? And so there's just a lot that goes on. For instance, we have the driverless car kind of thing where we're exploring autonomous vehicles. We actually built a whole small city on North Campus to have autonomous vehicles drive around in different scenarios with crossing guards and people and buildings and traffic lights and everything else. That's research that's going on currently. And it's not just people with PhDs behind their name kind of doing that research. There are a number of those, but it's also undergraduates, and they get to help out in that kind of cutting edge driving research at any of our schools. And they get published. And so you can have an opportunity where you as an undergraduate can work with one of the best people in their field, the cutting edge, Elon Musk kind of people in their respective field, and have your name published right beside that professor and saying, I know Dr. So-and-so, in fact, I'm published with them. And it's just a fantastic opportunity. Again, not just for your future, if you want to go into robotics, or if you want to go into autonomous vehicles, or if you want to go into biomedical research, but even if you're just interested in the field. I mean, it's a great way to expose yourself and say, is this what I like to do early on before you kind of get into it and do it? We have people doing, archaeological digs out in Utah, and they get to just explore if they really like that kind of work before they commit to a PhD, which is really, really kind of cool.
So Lisa, as veterans are transitioning from their favorite gun club that they've left their uniform behind, you often hear, I just really miss that togetherness and the like. And we hear others that say, I'm looking for like-minded individuals, and still others say, I want to get involved in activities that allow me to move out of my comfort zone, to meet people from other, walks of life. Can you talk about, how clubs and student organizations really feeds into that particular transition?
Absolutely. Yeah, so like Phil and Jerry mentioned, our universities, we all have about 1,000 or more clubs available to students. So I want to just paint that picture a little bit more and give you a couple of examples. So if you're taking notes right now, what I would suggest is just jotting down that there's kind of two types of clubs and student organizations. So you can look at it as the social side, and then there's also the professional side. So the social side is where you're building that affiliation and that community feeling at the university. One of my favorite clubs is, it's called the Tacos and Mustangs Club at ASU. And as you can imagine, this group of club members get together and they try out tacos at different restaurants across the Phoenix Valley, Maricopa County area. And they eat tacos all around, and they track them on social media, and they rate them and talk about what they think of these tacos. And they either drive Mustangs or they love Mustangs. So that is how they all came together. It was a small group of them who knew each other originally, and that club has actually grown quite a bit. And so new people from out of state and from all over the world join this club and have the chance to get to know new people and get out of their comfort zone and meet strangers who become their friends. Clubs could also, and student organizations could also include sororities and fraternities as well. And then, of course, any of the veteran clubs and organizations that are offered through our veteran centers or outside of the veteran centers that have been designed by students who want to specifically meet up with other, military affiliated students. On the professional side, you can then kind of break it down a little bit more. So once again, if you're taking notes, perhaps this is where you draw a couple of lines from the professional clubs and orgs to a couple of categories. So one of the student orgs and clubs I wanted to mention are related to academic performance. So you can actually join student clubs and organizations related to doing better in your classes. I know that doesn't sound like a fun club, which is why I'm calling that one a social one. But basically, for students who are, say, pre-med or pre-health, these are very popular clubs and orgs because these students basically come together and they become friends and they become each other's support network through a lot of those really, really challenging courses. If any of you, have ever taken anatomy, like human anatomy, for example, that is a course where you are required to know every single body part and every single bone in the human body as you're preparing to go on to med school or preparing to go on to a health degree. So there are student clubs and orgs where these students come together and they actually quiz each other and test each other. And perhaps one of them is really good in one subject and they can help the others. And then when it comes time for that person to be challenged, their classmates or their club members can help them get through some of those harder courses. The cool thing about those type of professional clubs is that everyone knows there is going to be some sort of class at your university that's going to push you and it's going to challenge you, potentially put you in tears or telling your spouse you want to drop out. But it's nice to know that you have those club members who are there with you and they're there to support you as well. The final group I'll mention within the professional side of clubs and orgs are related more to careers and career fields or areas of research interest. So perhaps joining clubs or organizations related to criminal justice and criminology and criminal justice. So considered maybe pre-law or moving into work within government relations. So those are clubs and organizations. All of us, I'm sure we can all raise our hands. We have like women in business clubs and organizations, women in engineering, women in STEM. There's also the diversity clubs and organizations related to, once again, building up your confidence as you're going out into the professional world, where these clubs and organizations are helping you set that foundation where you know that you are academically prepared from your academic coursework, but you're also prepared to go out there because you've mixed and mingled and networked and gotten to know a lot of professionals across the events offered by clubs and organizations.
And then Jerry, alumni networks, I mean, that's incredibly powerful, but not often discussed when veterans are looking for, what might be the right fit.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're so much more important than we realized in the military. But one of the things I've learned in working with student veterans, they listen to their peers. We rely on our military network. I mean, we're alumni from the Marine Corps and the Air Force, all the different branches, and we use our previous associations to network and make the transition. But when you come to a large university, we have 440,000 living alumni on this campus. It's a huge network. We call it the Aggie Network out there. And this ties to what I talked about a minute ago about the career opportunities, certainly. But it's also your social networks, and you're building new lifelong relationships that you never know when they will come and be able to help support you or make new connections elsewhere. Learning to network in the military, it wasn't a skill that we necessarily needed to master because of the structure. As you transition to the civilian world, networking is going to become very, very important. And being part of some of the largest alumni networks in the country is just a force multiplier to your future success. One quick example from A&M. We are not next to a military base. We're not in a large metropolitan area. For me to raise money, we've raised just over $15 million in 8 years, and well better than 90% of that has come from our alumni. That is the strength that we're drawing on to support our student veterans here. And they do it for all different kinds of people out there in corporate world. So it matters. The size of your alumni network, and large public universities have the best in the nation.
So Lisa, as graduates, veteran graduates are presenting themselves to employers, they have those soft skills. They can demonstrate leadership, ability to work within a team, critical thinking skills. But at the end of the day, those technical skills are incredibly important as well. Would you share with us how internships lead to your graduates walking out, off campus with that piece of paper, but also some very hard marketable skills?
Absolutely. So you mentioned the skills quite a bit there, which was perfect. The other piece I want to add too is that those internships oftentimes either open up doors at that company or organization, or perhaps at organizations that are affiliated with that one. So one common path we see is a student in, say, like the criminal justice degree area will pursue an internship within police headquarters And rather than going into work within the police force, they'll actually go into work with the sheriff's office. And so that's something that's actually pretty common, because basically, if you think about it, you are on site and surrounded by these professionals, once, twice, 3 times a week. So you're just building up those relationships with those individuals. The other piece I want to add, which is something that people don't commonly think about when it comes to internships, is the fact that the internship also indicates and gives you an idea of whether, if perhaps that isn't the right job for you. We see this, one example I always like to share is with social work. A lot of people go into a social work degree called a Bachelor of Social Work, BSW, and they go into it because they want to help kids and they want to work with children, is what they say. And that's what we always hear from the get-go. They then go into their internship where they're actually sitting there and sitting down with kids, and they, surprise, surprise, realize that kids kind of drive them crazy. And they didn't actually want to be there with kids, and they didn't want to sit down with kids. They are passionate about being the child's advocate and being there to support the child, but not to actually interact with them. So they then are able to use that internship as a way to say, wait a minute, I am now starting to understand what my career field and what my passion is. So in their next round, if there's another opportunity to do a second internship, they can then go and do an internship with, say, the legal system, working at a law office, where they're then developing their skills to be the child's advocate and work on their writing skills to write up legal documentation.
So Phil, we often run into veterans that are interested in applying to schools outside the United States, and I'm incredibly envious, but they don't always realize that study abroad opportunities are plentiful at the public universities.
You mentioned the world's the largest gun club, right? Matched only by the military's the largest study abroad opportunity, isn't it? So we also have some good study abroad opportunities where you don't have to wear a uniform, and you get to go to college, and so you can go to a study abroad opportunity where it's in a specific field or major for very specific reasons, or we can get like, for instance, if you wanted to study non-COVID era, if you wanted to study in France, we have a French institution where those credits, if you're in the correct major, will transfer, and so you can actually go to Michigan while studying in France. And so and if you're, the other myth I'd like to put out, kind of dispel on this, is there are ways, if we're credit to credit and it's within your degree program, the post 9/11 GI Bill would pay for tuition for that study abroad opportunity. We also have, and I suspect my colleagues would too, have plenty of financial aid opportunities for study abroad as well. So there's ways that we can help you pay, or the VA will help pay for your study abroad opportunity. And you can go to a place where you'd like to go rather than where the military sent you. Should I go on just start?
Yes. Well, Phil, you and I are killing it on the mute button.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. And I doubt anyone could read lips. So I wanted to thank the panelists for speaking in general regarding what truly differentiates large public universities. And I want to give each of our panelists an opportunity to talk about their respective schools. But before doing so, University of Michigan, Texas A&M University, and Arizona State University, they are our only 3 public universities that are part of VetLink. Service to Schools VetLink partnership is incredibly exclusive. I mentioned earlier that there's 4,000 degree granting institutions in the United States. Well, there's less than 400 that meet the criteria to be part and to be invited and then accepted into the VetLink program. And that's an intentional design. Less than 10% of veterans are attending a college or university with a graduation rate above 70%. That's horrendous. And it isn't because of aptitude, it isn't because of ability, it's because of a lack of awareness. And so our criteria is very stringent and we hold them to it. So in order to be a member of the Service to School VetLink partnership. You have to graduate 70% of your undergraduate students. You have to operate as a nonprofit institution, hold regional accreditation, be Title IV eligible, deliver the majority of your programs on a physical campus, participate in the Yellow Ribbon program, or meet full demonstrated need of all admitted students, and spend at least 50% of your tuition and fee revenue on instruction. All of this is verifiable data, and incredibly proud to now turn it over and allow the panelists, Phil, if you would start out talking about the University of Michigan.
Sure. Thank you so much. I feel like we have James Earl Jones as an alumni, so we have him on our football games, and he says, "This is Michigan." So I feel like a little bit of that maybe seeping through. We are proud to be a top tier university, along with my colleagues here. Depending on the ratings on this one, it was a #1 public school in the world based on this ranking. We graduate actually 92% of our undergraduates. So when you get to this university, even though it's academically challenging, we keep you, we graduate you, we get you through this, and we have academic help to help you get through this. We have, again, 280-degree programs, wonderful, 2 centuries of academic excellence. I was reading a thing about the pandemic, and they mentioned Johns Hopkins University as a leader in the medicine, and then they also mentioned the University of Michigan prior to 1900. I mean, we're still great, but they were talking about prior to 1900, we were still mentioned as a top tier school. We have a holistic application process that values your military experience. Somebody asked if we need ACTs. We do not need ACTs or SAT scores when you apply for us. We are going to look at your definitely your grades, but we are also looking at your military background. We are looking at what you bring to our campus. We are looking at that veteran experience, military experience that you can bring into our classroom and talk about real world things and talk about cultural significance from where you were. Talk about working with different people across gender and religion and orientation and race and religious lines. You've done that, and we value that in our classroom. In-state tuition for active duty, reservists, and veterans, of course. Free undergraduate tuition for families earning up to $65,000 with less than $50,000 of assets. You will qualify for, if you've served in the military, you are independent student status. That $65,000 is based on you, or if you're married, you and a spouse's income. So many of you will actually qualify for free tuition at Michigan for up to 4 years. And we can save your post 9/11 GI Bill, go to grad school at some other great school. We have priority registration for veteran and military students once you're there. We have over 575,000 alumni from around the world. That network that we have one of the largest alumni networks in the country for you to use to get a great job. We have an alumni network of the moon. Yes, we do. We had 2 astronauts that went to the moon and actually formed an alumni network on the moon. We have award-winning Ann Arbor VA Hospital, which is right next door to us, staffed with actually U of M doctors, so you will get great health care while you're here. We have peer mentorship, a point of contact for military students. We're one of the only universities in the country that have a PAVE, a VSOC, and a VITAL. Those are all VA connected, and the PAVE is a peer mentor. So we have somebody on healthcare, on benefits, mentorship, and we were one of the first universities in the country that we actually formed the Student Veterans of America. Us and 2 other universities formed SVA. And just visit our website and come and talk to me, and we can talk about your pathway to Michigan, and love to have you.
Oh.
Perfect.
There's our
Thank
Sun
you.
Devils.
There we go. Yep. So good. Thank you. I want to start first. I shared some information here on the screen that you can see very specific to the Veterans Center. But I do want to spend a little bit more time also just talking about ASU and the Sun Devil experience. So ASU is in the heart of Phoenix. Our main campus is offered at the Tempe campus, Tempe is one of the cities in the Phoenix metro area. However, we do have a very robust online experience as well. Many of our veteran students choose to do the online classes rather than coming and moving into, the Phoenix area because of their schedule and how that permits their availability and deployments and things like that. The cool thing about the online experience is that as an online student, you are not paying any out-of-state tuition. You are just paying the regular tuition, whether or not you're a resident of Arizona or living elsewhere across the world. But for those of you who are interested in coming onto campus, there are a couple of programs I want to make sure you're aware of, especially related to your military benefits. So one of them comes to one of our frequently asked questions, but the Yellow Ribbon Program. So ASU basically offers this program called the Yellow Ribbon Program, where students, any of the gap between in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition, the Yellow Ribbon Program provides the funding to fill in that gap. So if you are a military student and you're unable to claim residency, which happens occasionally, then ASU will work with you to ensure that you can still get the in-state tuition opportunities. And that goes across undergrad degree programs and grad school. But as you know, and I'm sure you've all probably at this point seen that with your military affiliation, there's usually a form available where you fill out the form and then you're able to get in-state tuition at ASU. It's certainly an option. I want to take this opportunity to also introduce you to our Pat Tillman Veterans Center. I wish I could do a poll right now and say, who knows who Pat Tillman is and what he's known for, and basically why our Veterans Center is named after him. Every time I talk about him, I get goosebumps, year after year after year. I mean, he died in 2004 in Afghanistan, and I still to this day get goosebumps talking about him. But basically, he was an ASU student who had the opportunity to play football with the Arizona Cardinals. And he could have signed a $3.6 million contract. And instead, in response to 9/11, he chose to join and enlist in the Army, where once again in 2004, he lost his life. So therefore, ASU has now created our Pat Tillman Veterans Center in his memory. One piece about this that I really like is that the Veterans Center is very closely connected with the rest of the ASU community and the Arizona community. So for example, there's a Pat Tillman Veterans Center run. So every year, everyone runs 4.2 miles, and we actually run into the Sun Devil Stadium where the football team plays football. And you pass the Pat Tillman statue, and you run through the Pat Tillman tunnel. The other piece is there's salute to service. And there's also the SOL ceremony. So upon graduating, military students participate in a university-wide ceremony where everyone gets the opportunity to recognize their achievements academically and in the military. ASU, if you haven't heard it yet, is #1 in innovation now for 6 years in a row. If you live in Phoenix, you have probably seen this all over every single city bus and every light rail. But basically, this is one of the most proud things we're proud of because of the fact that this is closely connected to that innovation within the classroom experience that students get. A couple of other things I just want to mention that aren't here on the slide are just some of the other high-ranked degree programs. Like our criminal justice program is consistently a top 5 degree program year after year after year. Our degrees within public affairs and public policy have been top 15 over years, year after year after year. So not only are you getting this strong community experience, but you are getting that academic experience that I know all of you are desiring as well. But I know I'm limited to 3 minutes, so I'm going to cut myself off because I could just keep going and going and going.
Finish out here, similar to the other 2 campuses, we just have a huge number of degree programs, very similar also in terms of the in-state tuition, and I would also imagine in terms of the admissions kinds of things. We've been supporting veterans since World War I at least. I will tell you a caveat. I opened our Veteran Resource and Support Center in 2012. So we actually have 2 veteran offices on our campus. So if you go to do the research, start with aggieveterans.tamu.edu. We took the divide and conquer approach here. The Veteran Services Office is underneath financial aid, and they focus solely on the GI Bill, the benefits, and maximizing money for our student veterans. And they're really good because they let us focus on the programming. I let them focus on the things that get inspected and audited. And so we can achieve separate excellence and through collaboration. A whole list of programs for our student veterans and their families. I'll just touch on a few of these. We have 2 full-time military admissions counselors. Both are named Karen, so Mama Karen and Aunt Karen, but that's all they do. They're in contact with well over 100 new prospective student veterans every month. And they know how to, well, don't misunderstand. They are not recruiters. If one of you calls up and talks to either Karen, they're going to help you try to determine if Texas A&M is a fit for you. It is never about quantity. And their goal is not just to get you to Texas A&M, it's to get you through Texas A&M in a next career and job of your choosing. So they're very good at what they do. Much like Michigan, we have our 2 VA employees, both VSOC and Vital. We were a PAVE school partnered with University of Michigan, and because of some campus opportunities, we began our own peer transition program tied with our Academic Success Center. We call it Valor. We have this huge Aggie veteran network tied to our Aggie network, and we partnered with a nonprofit out of Houston called Combined Arms. We are actually helping them build the new Texas veteran network. So we're expanding our reach. We have a student org that now has some veteran and dependent leadership in it. They're saving textbook costs for our military affiliated students in excess of $80,000 a year. They're near 600,000 total. First generation, if you are first college student in your family, special programs there. Career Connections, we talked about that. We're now almost at 150 veteran and spouse scholarships. And I think we'll be to 200 here in another 12 to 18 months. We were an all-male military school until the mid-60s. So we have deep military roots here, and our Aggie core values very much mirror our military core values. And that seems to be a good fit for a lot of veterans. But any one of these 3 campuses have ideal programs. And so what I would tell each of you in closing from the Texas A&M side is do your due diligence, do your research, go out there and find the right fit, because it may or may not be with Texas A&M. It may be one of these other great campuses, but that will make all the difference in your success in the future.
We're going to open up the floor in just a minute, give everyone an opportunity to ask questions of the panelists. Before we do so, some of you have seen Casey Valente. She's on the screen at times. Even further behind the scenes is Alex Nieves. Casey and Alex are 2 of my colleagues here at Service to School. There is no Service to School without Casey and Alex, so if we could give them a virtual hand clap, I appreciate that. So Casey, can you help me out and open up the floor for Q&A?
As we're waiting, I just wanted to comment too, like Gerald said, any one of our schools are just great opportunities. So I know we all put on each of us put on a sales pitch, but I want to echo that you know, ASU, a remarkable school, Texas A&M, remarkable school. So any one of our schools is a great choice for you if that's the kind of school you want to go to.
Daniel and Janice, I see you're unmuted. Did you do that yourself because you had a question to bring to the table, or John?
Question. So this is really directed towards Michigan, but I mean really to any university. Prior to joining the military, I went to college for a little bit, was completely not focused on school. And when I was joining the military, I kind of just ignored my schoolwork. GPA suffered tremendously from it. And so I'm worried that getting admitted to certain schools, I'm going to have a lot of issues. Is there any kind of way around that, or how to, you know, just address that in any way?
Sure. Is this college or high school?
College.
Okay. And how many credit hours did you have in that college?
42.
Okay, so that's a significant experience. I would probably want to talk to you just to see what kind of pathway exists. Yes, there is a way. I want to make sure that it makes sense for you too as well. Some of it would be if you're switching majors, if you're doing something different than you did before, maybe we could definitely work on that. But I wouldn't want somebody coming in and trying to, having 90 credit hours plus or so before they can do a really good transfer, when that's a significant way onto your undergraduate degree. So it really depends on a lot of factors. One of the things we want to do when we talk about admissions, and this is probably true for the other schools, is we want to make sure that you're successful here. We are not a school that admits people just to get your money. That's just not our business model. Again, 92% graduation rate. We're proud of that. We want to keep that up. We want to make sure students are ready for an exceptionally difficult academic experience. I mean, I compare us kind of like the big leagues of colleges. And so we want to make sure that when you're admitted, you're ready to hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, because that's what we're going to throw at you. And so a lot of what admissions does is make sure that you're ready. If you have high school scores or college scores that weren't quite great before you joined the military, we understand that's part of the process. I always say the military has a way of squaring you away pretty darn well, and get you on the right track. And that was certainly my experience going through high school, and getting into college. Was the military helped square me away pretty quickly. And we look at that military experience as that transformative moment. And then we will look at but we need to see college scores and about 30 credit hours or so post, if everything went well, if everything's going well, about 30 credit hours for LS&A. And then we have some prerequisites that we have to work through for engineering. But we'd want to see some really good college scores and see what you've done post military, and see where you are to make sure that you're ready to hit that 95-mile-an-hour fastball.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
But please give me a call. We can talk about it. I want to talk to you about if there's a pathway and kind of what that would look like with you.
Yeah, where can I get your call info?
I can give it to you right now if you got paper. So it's 810-875-7743. I'll be in the office. I'm taking a day off, so I'll be in the office starting Tuesday. It's a lot of information I'm giving out right here.
All right, sounds good. So I'll give you a call Tuesday.
So, Lisa, one of the things that you and I talked about this morning really falls into your area of expertise, is that students who are attending a public community college have the opportunity to put themselves on a pathway for a 2+2 articulation agreement, a guaranteed transfer program, or something similar. And when Alex and I are talking with veterans who are at the community college, we tell them one of the first things they need to do is talk with those transfer advisors, and that they are on that pathway. They are very likely to be taking the classes that prepares them to be a competitive applicant at nearly any school across the country, be it public or private, because you're really focusing on those general ed requirements that are so critically important to a transfer student being successful. Could you talk a little bit more about that with us, please?
Absolutely. In fact, I have a great statistic to share with you about the pathway program. So students who are on a pathway program retain, which means they continue on in their undergrad experience at a university, at an 84% higher rate than the ones who just enroll at a university, kind of organically. So the pathway programs basically are set up in a way where you pick a degree at a university that interests you. So say business management. And then when you're at a community college or group of community colleges, you will take specific courses, and you don't have to guess. Like, the courses are outlined for you, so you know exactly what courses to take each semester, leading up to the time where you start your degree at a university. So at ASU, for example, the one that I'll share is it's called My Path to ASU, and basically students will take those courses. They're guaranteed admission at the time of completing their pathway program, and they come into ASU usually as a junior, and they automatically just start up their degree program. The other piece I'll mention, which, it kind of goes back to Jim's point that oftentimes these are related to specific cities or states. Oftentimes they're also related to any community colleges that are part of like a county or a group of community colleges. So perhaps like all of the New York community colleges or all of the Maricopa community colleges. So you're not even limited to just one community college, but it could be attending any of the community colleges within that network, and you can still take those courses to be transferred to a university as part of the pathway program. The final piece I'll mention, and I know we're at time, is that when you sign up for a pathway within these 3 universities, you're also put into like a communication flow. So you're automatically getting communication specifically for students who are part of the pathway program, which is good too, because then you're not sorting through random emails here and there.
So Lisa, Jerry, and Phil, I mean, I talk to you and your colleagues every day, and despite that, I've learned quite a bit today. Really incredible information. I'm sure all of you who are participating with us today have learned more about what all public institutions entail. But at the same time, as you see on the screen, there's a direct point of contact for each of our panelists. I know they'll respond because they respond to veterans that we introduce to them on a very consistent manner. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Wish you well, and look forward to hearing that you graduated and you're moving on in the world.